I keep hearing this a lot from buyers and realtors side about, oh, buyers aren't ready yet. They're not ready yet because they just switched jobs. So I wanted to go over what the requirements are for most loan types. I mean, it can definitely differ, but what the standard requirements are for jobs. So as a lender, we're looking at the 2-year history of employment. That doesn't mean they have to have been at the same job for 2 years, even the same type of industry necessarily for 2 years. We're just looking at the last 2 years, and we're not even looking at necessarily what they do for a living or how much they used to make necessarily. We're looking at continuation of income. We're looking at, have you been able to hold a job for the last couple of years so that you will hopefully continue to hold a job to pay the mortgage you're trying to take out. Now, during that 2-year period, that could have been different jobs, doesn't have to be the same company. However, if they've got 10 different jobs in the last 2 years, that might be a red flag from an underwriting standpoint, but it doesn't have to be within the same job or even the same field. They could have been working as a waitress and now they're working at the mall. It doesn't matter if it's the same type of job necessarily either. We're just, again, looking at that history. And it technically, for most loan types, doesn't even necessarily matter if it was part-time and now they've gone full-time. As long as we don't have large gaps in employment, that's more or less what we're looking for. Now, if they're variable hours and they don't get the same amount of hours, sometimes the difficult part becomes, depending on the loan type, we may have to average those last 2 years of employment. So that can be tough if they went from part-time to full-time in different job types and they're not working consistent hours. That may end up being more of a negative for their income and DTI, but on average, that's not really an issue. There's 2 bigger times that we're really looking for a consistent 2 years within the same employer, and that's if we're going to be using commission or bonus or overtime. If we need to use those extra pays, then yes, them being with the same employer for the last 2 years is extremely helpful and allows a much easier calculation. However, let's say someone works for a car dealership, they switch from dealership to dealership, they had the same structure of pay and the commissions were similar, that's usually okay as well. However, if they've switched from being a hairdresser to working at a car dealership, we may not be able to use that extra income until they've actually got a full 2-year history of it. The only other time that it becomes very tricky is self-employed. We need 2 years of self-employment history. We're relying on you to tell the government how much money you made, and you have to make your own money. So we need to see across the last 2 years what they made. The hard part becomes we do have people that were W-2 and then switched to 1099. A good example of that is hairdressers. We have hairdressers that were W-2 and now they are technically 1099, but they haven't been doing it for 2 years. They've been a hairdresser for 2 years, but have not been on the 1099 side for 2 years. And that's where they hit the wall most of the time of needing the 2-year history. But in general, we're just looking at the 2-year history, especially if they've been W-2. It doesn't have to be the same employer, not even the same job type, not even necessarily part-time to full-time. That can also be if they were a stay-at-home mom. That could be technically a job that they had. If they were a student, that can count as employment time. So it's not always the traditional way that people think about. My biggest thing is I would say if you have bars that you're concerned or other lenders are telling them no for job issues, definitely reach out. We'll look at their situation, see if there's a way around it, or see if maybe it's just a different guideline. Hope that helps.